Today I'm sharing over 15 ideas for storylines to try in The Sims 4. Some of these are based on family, some are romance storylines. I also have some occult and friendship-based storylines. So I'm really excited to share these plot ideas. Let's get into the game and I'll show you them. The first idea is to have two high school best friends who are too nervous to confess their feelings to each other while they're in high school. So they grow apart as young adults, and then eventually they finally realize their love for each other, and then they end up together. This couple right here, they grew up in Moonwood Mill, really close to each other because their parents were close friends. And Felix here is a werewolf. Oyone is not a werewolf. And so she was always feeling a little bit inferior to Felix and his brother while growing up because they were werewolves in Moonwood Mill, and she felt like she just wasn't good enough. He had a big crush on her the entire time they were in high school, but she kind of ignored him because of her own insecurities. She went to college and tried to date some other people, but then he actually kept showing up on campus to just hang out with her and calling her and things like that. And she was always attracted to him and always had good compatibility with him throughout school. So I eventually had her pursue that once she had grown up and got more confidence in herself. And now they're married and they have a little werewolf daughter here. And they have a dog, of course, because they're werewolves. The next idea is maybe a little bit sad, but you're gonna have a married couple where one of them makes all of the money, they make all the decisions too, and the other one is kind of, they have to take care of the house, they have to take care of the kids. They don't really have much freedom on their own, but the relationship is not good in many ways. Maybe they have bad compatibility, or I don't know, maybe one of them cheated. Just for whatever reason, the relationship is bad, and you can decide that in your gameplay. But one of the Sims doesn't have their own way of making money. So the goal in that story would be for them to build up some kind of hobby or side hustle where they can actually make their own money and get enough to buy a starter home or move into a new apartment on their own. The next idea is really fun. I haven't tried it myself, but I want to try it. It's to have a rivals to lovers situation. So in high school years, if you join something like the chess team or football or cheerleading, the game automatically assigns you a rival. I think they do it every time. Sometimes I don't notice who the rival is, but sometimes it's more obvious because I'll just look at their relationship panel and they'll have a negative relationship with some other teen sim. And then I open that sim's profile and they're rivals. So I think that would be really fun to play out a storyline of them both working really hard on, cheerleading or chess team or whatever the club is that they're in. But then they start to bond as friends and eventually have a romance. The next idea is to take two Sims who maybe their parents are friends, so they know each other, they're like family friends basically, and these two Sims don't want to go to university. Maybe they're high school dropouts, or maybe they graduated high school and they just don't really know what they want to do with their lives, or they want to take a non-traditional path. I had their parents introduce these two Sims to each other because the parents were friends, basically. So they had them get to know each other and move in together because this Sim, he didn't want to go to college. He wanted to open a ranch. And this Sim didn't really have an idea of what she wanted to do in her life. She just knew she wanted to move far away from Brindleton Bay, which is where she grew up. So they moved in together because their parents recommended that they help each other in the journey of young adulthood, basically. They said you can help each other split the rent, pay bills, and pursue your interests. So they moved in together and started working on the ranch, and it was really hard. It was my first time playing with Horse Ranch when I played with these Sims. And if you've played with Horse Ranch and tried running a full ranch, you'll know it's a lot of work. And through all of that hard work and being exhausted, but feeling more fulfilled with themselves and only really talking to each other all day, they fell in love along that journey. So that was a fun storyline to play. And I think you could do that, especially with businesses and hobbies now. You could really pull off something like that. It doesn't just have to be a ranch or a farm. You could do that with lots of different hobbies and interests. The next idea is basically to start a blended family. So you can have two single parents for whatever reason. They're both single parents, and they meet each other through some kind of club gathering, or maybe a friend introduces them to each other, or they both have the same hobby. Maybe they meet at a community lot. However, they just start a blended family. And this family was so fun to play. I'll show you each of the Sims. So he was married to a Sim, Rebecca. She died. And this Sim, her previous spouse cheated and they got divorced. So these two got married and then they joined their families together. So this Sim is his son from the previous marriage. And then this son married this girl and they had this daughter. So there's already like 3 generations in one household just from his side. And then this Sim had this child from her previous marriage. So then they got married and had this child together. So there's a lot of different dynamics here, a lot of different relationships. And it was really fun to play, especially when the kids were growing up. So when these two were much younger and this Sim was a baby, I would rotate which Sim would take off from work. This Sim would take off Monday, this Sim would take off Tuesday. And so then there was an adult home with the kids every day to help them with skill building and things. And so that was kind of the most fun I had playing with a big family. Usually I only like playing with small families. I usually get stressed out with big families and I don't really make much of a storyline for them. But with these Sims, really focusing just having one adult Sim stay home with the little kids each day really helped build their relationships and skills, and it made me feel more connected to these Sims. And it was just fun having multiple generations and different family relationships all in the same house. Usually when a Sim's relationship ends, I have them meet at Townie or go on Cupid's Corner or something like that. They don't usually marry into a different family that I'm playing. So this was kind of combining 2 different parts of my full save file. If you're wondering why I'm showing a lot of Sims from the gallery, it's because I did play a lot of these storylines, but those Sims have all died already. So we're looking into the past. So this family here, there's 2 kids. There's Yuna and Matthias. And they did not like each other growing up. They fought constantly. Matthias was kind of the sporty, athletic, talented kid. And then Yuna was really smart and creative. She always had the best grades and she was really good at art. So Matthias was just pretty jealous of his sister and they fought constantly growing up. And so they made up eventually once they were like fully adults and had their own little families. But throughout their teen years and young adulthood, they were super competitive with each other, always trying to one-up each other with grades and things like that. And to actually make that come through in The Sims, I just had them argue like all the time. So basically every dinner, the kids would be talking to their parents like separately, and then they would just start arguing with each other. And I really leaned into that because I wanted that to be the storyline with them. Once I saw them butting heads a couple of times on their own, I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna fight a lot. It was fun to play like a sibling rivalry, basically. Another idea you could try is to have a young adult Sim move in with their grandparents to take care of them in their final days. I think that's a really sweet storyline, and you could have your Sim really bond with their grandparents and do a lot of different activities together. I like having my elder Sims go to lots of different community lots and really just explore their hobbies. So I think it would be nice to have a younger Sim in their family join them and help take care of the bills and the housework and things like that. It's just a nice family bonding gameplay style to try. The next idea is to have a situation where the older sibling, so maybe a teen, maybe a young adult, suddenly has to take care of their kid sibling. So it could be a child, could be a toddler. I've done this twice in my gameplay. Once was a teen taking care of a toddler. That was rough. And once was a young adult bringing in their child sibling, who then aged up to a teen, and they had a lot of drama with each other because the older sibling had the hates children trait. So she was not happy while the younger sibling was still a child. But for the other idea I did with the teen taking care of the toddler, that was really difficult for him financially, and he was also super tired. It was hard for him to keep up with schoolwork. And he and his little brother, sometimes they butted heads growing up because the younger sibling knew, like, oh, this is my older brother and he's taking care of me. Who does he think he is? So they kind of argued sometimes, but then once they grew up and became adults, they were closer than ever. The next idea is to have a sim who's either a young adult straight out of high school or maybe a high school dropout who really wants to pursue their art or some other hobby, and their parents don't support them, so they just have to make it work on their own. This sim is not an artist, but she loves snowboarding, and her parents are in really kind of serious careers, so they didn't take it seriously when she said she wanted to be a snowboarding YouTuber, basically. So she moved on her own to Mount Komorebi, and she didn't really have much money. Her family is rich, and so they gave her brother a lot of money when he moved out. She didn't really get much. She moved in and only had like 500 simoleons. Now she's built up some more, and she actually got married and had a baby recently. But that was basically her story. And actually, her grandparents just died. So I think she got a will because her grandparents didn't agree with her parents not really giving her any money when she moved out, especially since they were so rich and they definitely could have given her a lot of money. So we're gonna check what the will says because I kind of forget what I gave her in the will. Let's go check the mail and see how much money she got because I feel like her grandparents are going to pull through. Oh, only one of them? Was there another one? Oh, I just remembered. So she has two sets of grandparents. One set has died, so that's the money from this will. The other set is still alive. They're elders, but they haven't died yet. So we just have one will right now. 100% of simoleons. Let's see how much it is. I forget how much it was. 30K! Nice! Okay, she's not gonna struggle anymore. I really wanted her grandparents to leave her money in their wills because I felt like they felt bad for her and how her parents were treating her. So this is a nice continuation to her story. Now, another idea kind of stemming from this same sim. She moved to Mount Komorebi to pursue her snowboarding YouTuber dreams, and she didn't really have any friends here at all. So I think a fun storyline to play is moving a young adult somewhere and then just having them meet a bunch of other young adult sims. You could add them from the gallery. That's what I did. I have 2 households here that are just full of sims that I wanted her to meet and see who she had good compatibility with, who she was attracted to. So then I just built up a new friend group for her and found someone for her to date. And I think that's a fun storyline to do because it's like you're building their new life and they don't know anybody there. So Kaori is her best friend. And then these other sims are in her club. They do a lot of adventure activities together because she's an adventurous sim. So she's made her whole new friend group and found a husband. And she's ignored all of the calls from her parents. They haven't talked in a long time. I'm gonna have them make up eventually, but for now, they're not going to. The next idea is for high school sims. So you could have a super social, really popular sim be best friends with a sim who's more of a loner and doesn't really feel like meeting a bunch of people, but they hang out together and show each other their interests and hobbies. And they could be lifelong best friends. You could have them go to college together, be roommates. I think it's a fun idea for a friendship story. The next idea is for occult sims. You could have 2 sides of the family, one that thinks they're good. So this can be good vampires, good spellcasters, good werewolves, versus the side that doesn't really like to play by the rules. Maybe they're seen as evil by society or just misunderstood, like some of the werewolves. Maybe they're vampires who drink Sims' blood without permission, and they just have very different views of how the occult should interact with human Sims. And so you could just have them fight like all the time. You can make clubs where the activities are to fight or to use their powers. They can cast spells, they can drink plasma as a club activity. So you could just have them go around battling it out. Something I like to do in my whole legacy save file is to have them basically try to steal money from each other. And I just do that with basic money cheats. So I'll have some of the Sims fight the others and they take like all of their money, and then the other Sims are left with nothing. And it's like the whole good versus evil occult aspect. That's really fun to do also. Another idea that's fun to try is to have a teen Sim basically run away from home and become a werewolf. And I feel like that really fits into the rebellious teen werewolf kind of vibe. You could also have them join vampires or spellcasters. It could be any type of occult. But the concept is to just have them run away from home for whatever reason as a teenager. And then they try to build a new life with this occult world that they've never been in before. So this Sim ran away from home when she was a teenager. Her father was the Sim president, and she really didn't like being in the spotlight. She just wanted to get away from it. So she moved to Moonwood Mill. Her werewolf form is like adorable. Isn't she so cute? So she moved to Moonwood Mill and she got involved with Rory Oaklow, but it was kind of a toxic relationship. It wasn't that good, but they were fated mates. So it was kind of hard for her to break out of that, but she did eventually. And then she married Jacob, and they are just really, really cute together. They're even doing the same pose here, and they stayed together, you know, their entire lives. So they're really cute and happy together. I had so much fun playing her storyline of trying to figure out the right place for her among the werewolves, because she tried Rory at first and she tried being in Rory's pack, but then she realized it wasn't for her, and then she joined Jacob's pack and fell in love with him. That was some of the most fun I ever had playing The Sims. I loved the werewolf pack when it came out, specifically because of her storyline that I played. So I really recommend trying that, even if you do it with a different occult. I think it would be really fun. And then another idea you could try is to have an immortal vampire. Right? So they're immortal. They've been alive for a super long time. They had a one true love, but that love was human and they died. You can play through all of that if you want, or just start with an elder human and a vampire who loves them, and then the elder dies. Whichever way you want to do it, I think it would be fun. Well, sad, but also interesting, because after the elder dies, then your vampire sim would try to connect with humans for their immortal life. Maybe they could have dinner parties cooking human food, try to connect with humans, but then they're also trying to find a cure for vampirism. So that could be your goal, is trying to find a cure and connect with humans while grieving your human love who died. I think it sounds like a really sad and sweet storyline to play. The next idea would be to have a strict vampire parent with a rebellious teen werewolf child. And the way you would do that is if the vampire's child is born a human, they don't get the vampire trait, and then they move out to become a werewolf. I think that could be a really fun dynamic to play, since the vampires and werewolves are technically enemies. So that could be interesting. And then kind of going off of that, you could have human siblings become different occults, and then it's like a sibling and occult rivalry thing. You could even have multiple occults, maybe 3 siblings. One of them is a vampire, one's a spellcaster, one's a werewolf. And maybe they get along, but maybe they also fight all the time and use their powers against each other. The next idea is to have a sim who is half alien, right? So their parent got abducted, taken to Sixum, and then they were pregnant. They had a half alien baby. That baby is so mad that their parent was taken against their will to Sixum and, you know, forcibly impregnated. That's a little messed up, right? So this half-alien baby will grow up with the goal of going to Sixum. They're going to become a scientist. They want to go to Sixum and beat up their alien parent. I think it would be fun because they have this goal driving them, and they make a bunch of alien enemies. They also maybe become a little bit of an evil scientist, and it's all based around wanting to protect their parent and loving their human parent. So that's it for today. I hope you liked some of the story ideas that I had. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe so you can see when I post more. Next week, I'm going to have a video ranking all of the traits in The Sims 4. I'm going to rank them all by storytelling possibilities. So the boring traits will be ranked at the bottom, and the more interesting traits will be ranked at the top. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!